Tonight on the Late Debate, another immigration promise from Keir Starmer upset some in his own party. But is the Prime Minister's pledge too little, too late?
These rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
Also tonight, the rise of reform. A surge in support gives political rivals a lot to think about after a big night at the local elections. Were you expecting to be elected?
I was ambitious enough. Expecting, no.
I therefore declare that Kenneth Robert Livingstone is duly elected the first Mayor of London.
And happy birthday, London's Mayor. As the Greater London Authority turns 25, is it time to give Sadiq Khan more power? Hello and welcome to the Late Debate. Out of all the issues troubling Labour, immigration is one that could do lasting damage. Keir Starmer needs to get a grip as voters turn to reform. This week, the Prime Minister warned Britain could become an island of strangers if controls were not tightened. But even some of his own MPs found that hard to stomach. Joining me now to discuss that are my guests this week. From Labour, the MP for Vauxhall and Camberwell Green, Florence Eshalomi, who we just saw in the Commons. For the Conservatives, the MP for Romford, Rosindell. And for the Liberal Democrats, the former leader of the party in the London Assembly, Baroness Pidgeon. Welcome all of you. Florence, did you find Keir Starmer's language divisive?
I think the key bit which hasn't caught on in some of the media clips is where the Prime Minister spoke about celebrating the diversity and what diversity brings to the UK. And I know that in my constituency of Vauxhall and Camberwell Green, we celebrate that. I think the Prime Minister is right to outline some of the concerns around the dependence on immigration for some sectors. We see our council struggling in terms of filling vacancies in the care sector. We see a number of hospitality as well, again, key issues that I have in my constituency. But what I want the government to set out is how we make sure in everything that the government is doing, we are speaking about this in an inclusive language. And I know that some people have raised concerns around some of the language on that.
How are you going to sell these immigration curbs to your constituents?
I think the key thing for me and the starting point is around making sure that people who, as I said in the chamber, directly to the Home Secretary, people who've already made a commitment in terms of spending a number of years in the UK, integrating into the UK, contributing to the UK, whether that's through the different jobs that they do. What's next for them? Like I said, some people have contacted me. They're worried about what the process will be for them. So I'm seeking clarity on their behalf in terms of what's been set out in that white paper.
Andrew, has Labour stolen your clothes?
I cannot understand how the Labour Party can, for years, be the party that is pro-immigration and have no policy to deal with it and attack everything the Conservatives have tried to do, yet within 10 months of being elected, they've done a complete U-turn. So I don't believe Keir Starmer. I don't trust what he's saying. I don't think he's genuine at all. I don't think he's going to do anything to resolve the mass immigration problem that we face. Simon, it's simply unsustainable to have immigration at the levels we have at the moment, the size of the city of Birmingham potentially every year. We have to control immigration and we have to make sure that people integrate, that they learn English and become part of our society. Otherwise, all you're going to see is social divisions, and that's something none of us want to see.
But people are already integrating, Andrew, wouldn't you say?
Florence, a lot do, but a lot don't, unfortunately. And the problem is it's mass immigration. In years gone by, we never had the level of immigration we had today. Everyone came here and they had jobs and they worked together. But now it's so large, it's so colossal, that it's almost impossible to bring everyone together harmoniously in one country.
Can I bring Caroline in here? As the party of the EU, you supported freedom of movement. Do you accept that the mood of the public has changed?
I think what we're seeing is years of Conservative government where we've had an immigration system that is not fit for purpose. And actually we need an immigration system that works for our country, but also for the economy. And so I want to actually dial down the language on this. I don't think it's helpful to have divisive divisive language, as we've heard this week. But what I think is really important is to have that conversation. What skills do we need in our economy? I mean, look at care workers. You know, we're in a situation that we rely on people coming from overseas to prop up our care system, doing vital work. We need to increase the wage there to help people and respect that profession, to help people working in the care sector, looking after our loved ones. But we need to have that mature debate. And I think the language we've heard this week is regrettable. It's not language I would use or my party would use. But we need to make sure we get a system that's fit for purpose, that works for the economy and our country as a whole.
Florence, can you hand on heart support all of these reforms, like the demand that new migrants must speak English?
I think it works both ways, and I think about the many Brits who've made their home in many European countries, other countries, making sure that they're learning the language where they are as well. I think it's vital that people do learn English, but this requirement that you have to learn English to integrate, I don't agree with that, because there are many people who haven't spoken English, who don't learn English, but they're still able to contribute to UK society. So I think we do need to look at that. And essentially, you know, a number of people, their mother tongue brings that inclusivity that we celebrate in any one of the schools in my constituency. If you go into the primary school, secondary school, you'll hear over 150 languages being spoken. That's something that we should celebrate. English is a fantastic language. It's our mother tongue, but equally it's about respecting other languages as well.
You're nodding in agreement there.
Well, I just think Britain's always been a wonderfully inclusive country. But the thing that binds us together, the glue that binds us together, is our Britishness. So you can have people from here, from all kinds of ancestries in different countries, but they become British and they're as proud of our country as the rest of us. And I think if you lose that Britishness and you don't speak English, you're not proud of our traditions, you fly the flag, as I do all the time. I know people in my constituency who've come from different countries, whose family are from different origins, but they're as proud of being British as I am, and that's where we need to be. What we don't want is a divisive situation.
You have citizenship ceremonies, and you see people so proud to take that oath to King and Country now.
King and Country,
and so many of them are so proud, and many of them will come dressed up in their nines, in their traditional outfits, and that's what we need to celebrate. That's what's missing from this discussion, I think.
I agree with you totally, Florence, on that.
Caroline, what would the Lib Dems do, or what would you support to get net migration down?
Well, I think I want to get away from figures, because I think you've got to actually look at what our economy needs. And we've seen year after year the previous Conservative government making promises on figures around net migration, and actually they never met those targets. And actually that's why the public are so disillusioned. That's why they're concerned about this. So actually having that mature discussion, turning the dial down on this rhetoric that actually makes people frightened out there. People are frightened on the streets. And when we have this sort of angry language, what you end up with is spikes in hate crime, which is a real concern. So I think having that mature discussion, seeing what is needed in our economy, also how can we skill up British workers as well to make sure that we fill those gaps that are needed. And care workers is particularly the area that we're concerned about as a party.
Florence, I think we can detect your reservations about what the Prime Minister said this week. Can you see a point where you and some of your fellow London Labour MPs might be prepared to oppose the government's measures?
I've set up my concerns loudly in the chamber directly with the Home Secretary. I'll continue to raise my concerns because that's what we do as a party. In terms of going forward, it's about digesting what's in the white paper. It's about looking through that. It's about making sure there's an open and transparent conversation, consultation for us as MPs and other groups to feed into. Most importantly, the sectors that rely on people from across the world working, they need to feel confident in responding to this as well. That's what's really important for me.
Let's pause on this for a moment, because we need to ask just how much has the government's immigration policy been influenced by the local elections? 3 decades of Tory rule in Kent came to an abrupt end after a surge in support for reform. There wasn't much to celebrate either in Buckinghamshire and Hertfordshire, which both slipped to no overall control. While there were no elections in London, Reform believes the party can make big gains here too, backed up by a new poll.
Reform UK is now officially the challenger to Labour. Our vote share has surged by 10% since the general election. We're now in second place, ahead of the Conservatives. There's only one party that you need to vote for if you want to get rid of Keir Starmer and indeed Sadiq Khan.
But in other parts of the country, you're ahead of Labour. You can't really crack London, can you?
London is a challenge, But just because something's difficult doesn't mean it's not worth trying. This is how far we've come in just a year since the general election. There's 3 years to go. If we carry on this rate of progress, then absolutely we can be challenging for top spot as well.
Caroline, do you recognise a surge in support for reform in London?
Not in London at all. And actually the local elections across the country showed Lib Dems become the second party of local government. We gained over 370 councillors. We elected 370 councillors last week. And what's really important is actually people saying they're responding to local champions who work hard for their area. And in many parts of the country, it's the Liberal Democrats. And we saw that taking control of 3 county councils for the first time. I don't see reform growing in London. I see in huge parts of London the Lib Dems being a big challenger. You look at the South West, we won our first constituency on the London Assembly last time. We doubled our MPs. I think we're in with a real chance in the capital at the next local elections and also the London elections beyond that.
So, Florence, Labour can afford to ignore reform in London?
I don't think, again, we're seeing a threat of reform, but it's not about saying we are complacent, far from it. You look at the general election last year where Labour picked up traditionally Conservative seats across London. We now have no Conservatives in central London, in London seats as well. We have more Labour MPs in outer London. And it's not about being complacent, but it's about looking at the data. The data does show that there were some significant gains from other parties, including the Lib Dems in London. But it's about, rising to that challenge, making sure we continue to deliver on some of the key issues for Londoners. The good thing about London is that, we are inclusive, we are tolerant, we are diverse, and we celebrate that. So I think that some of that divisive language and rhetoric from reform, I'm confident that Londoners will turn away from that.
Are you alarmed by reform in your constituency, Andrew?
Well, I think reform exists because the Conservatives failed. The Conservatives failed to do the things we said we'd do in the last 14 years. And also, local government is failing. And public services are failing. Nothing seems to work like it used to in this country, and people are frustrated. They've seen Conservatives being in power for 14 years and not achieving the things we promised we would do. And they now see Labour, and Labour's doing U-turns, going back on what it said it would do. And people are very angry. In 10 months, they're quite angry. So they're going for something different. And I think the country does need change, and I think we need a radical change, and I believe the Conservative Party should lead that change, and I'm hoping to help my party get to that stage where we can put the country back on the right track again.
OK, but you lost control of Kent County Council, you no longer have control of Bucks or Herts. How long has Kemi Badenoch got?
Well, I think Kemi Badenoch was elected fair and square as our leader, and she has the time to get on with the job and make a success of the Conservative Party again. But there's a lot of work to be done, and she's developing policy, she's looking at new ideas. But there are key issues that people want answers on. One of those is immigration, which we've already discussed. The other one is public services. As I've said earlier,
which has been dilapidated over the 14 years by Conservative
blame lockdowns
government.
for that, and blame all the financial problems that we faced.
Andrew.
I'm sorry, but we were growing as an economy before lockdowns.
Not
we were
local
actually
government.
very successful. But what was happening is during lockdowns, we shut the economy down. Now, you're going to be poor if you close your economy down. So it went too far and went on for too long.
Caroline, you must be disappointed after your success in Buckinghamshire and Hertfordshire, where you're now the largest party, disappointed that you weren't allowed to contest Surrey because the election was postponed there. You'd have done quite well, I imagine.
I think we would have done, and I think we were frustrated that these elections were postponed and we don't know when we're going to get elections in those areas. But we took control of Oxfordshire, Cambridgeshire, Shropshire, real Tory heartlands we took control of for the first time ever. And I think we're seeing, we'd had thrown at us by the Tory leader that Lib Dems are the party that likes to fix your church roof. Well, these elections showed that people like electing people who get on and do things in their community and are strong community champions, and that's why we did so well.
I agree with that completely. And I think local councils should be first and foremost for their local communities.
Yeah,
I was a councillor in Havering for 12 years, and 90% of what I did wasn't political. It was about serving the community, getting things done for local people and looking after things in your local town. And I think really that's what people want from local government. They don't want everything to be a party political bum fight.
OK, you all were local politicians, so let's talk about the Mayor's office, which celebrated a big birthday this month, 25 years since this moment of political history.
I therefore declare that Kenneth Robert Livingstone is duly elected the first Mayor of London.
A lot has happened since Ken Livingstone was voted in as the first mayor. He was followed by Boris Johnson And then Sadiq Khan, during a time the capital hosted the Olympics, introduced the congestion charge and got a new train line. So what next, and should the mayor get more tax powers?
We're keen to make sure that the government understands that when we have good policies, they benefit in terms of extra taxes paid, jobs being created and so forth. We're keen to speak to the government about sharing the proceeds of some of that growth.
One of the major reasons for giving the Mayor of London more powers, indeed London government more powers, is that it would mean decisions were made closer to people, and that would enhance faith in government. We have polling evidence that shows people actually like decisions made closer to them, so it would enhance the accountability of government, but also, of course, allow resources to be used more effectively, because locally decisions are made with a greater understanding of what people want here.
Can I ask all three of you, is London a better place for having a mayor?
I think so, because I think actually having a mayor and a London Assembly to hold the mayor to account is really important. We're seeing more powers given to the city. We're seeing, I think, a higher profile of the city, but it hasn't stood still, and we need to see more powers given to the mayor, particularly around sort of property tax raising and things like that, which I think would be helpful, but more powers for the Assembly to hold that mayor to account.
Florence, you were on the Assembly like Caroline. Do you think London's better for having a mayor?
I think undoubtedly it's been such a success seeing the mayoral model in London, in that it's not just about London locally or nationally, it's about internationally. London is recognised because of the mayor system as well, and I think that's really powerful in terms of being a global powerhouse for the UK. I think what we need to see now, as the government are bringing forward the devolution white paper, is around making sure that London doesn't get left behind. You look at some of the strategic powers the other metro mayors and the combined authorities have, and I agree with Caroline in terms of strengthening the role of the mayor and the Assembly to hold the mayor, whoever he or she is, to account.
Because the mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, has more say over how he spends government money than Sadiq Khan, doesn't he?
We have a situation where our capital city has no direct funding in terms of something like transport. We are the only major city without that direct funding. If that was devolved more of those powers to the mayor, you could see the influence and the difference that would make. You
like the idea of a mayor?
No, disagree with it completely. It's a layer of government we don't need. We need to put the money back.
Doesn't London need a champion, a voice?
We've got individual boroughs that are the best units to decide what's best for our local communities on planning. Transport can be a variety of combinations. I mean, I'm in the London Borough of Havering. We're Essex, and we have no interest in areas of South London and West London. We do care about Essex because we're there, but we're sort of like not permitted to cooperate with Essex in the same way that we have to with Greater London. But it costs us a huge sum of money. Each household in my borough, it's about £600 a year. We get no services for it. There is no political support for the continuation of the London Assembly and the Mayor of London in my borough. And if there was a referendum in Havering, I think we would vote to leave Greater London, be a unitary authority.
Caroline, do you detect Sadiq Khan's reluctance to criticise a Labour government making him less effective?
Yeah, I think it's noticeable, and his asks in the recent, funding round seem to be very small compared to the long shopping list he had when the Conservatives were in power. But you see, I think the beauty of the London Assembly is it's cross-party, and actually mostly it works well together. And I think a really clever mayor should use that Assembly and use those diverse voices to help make the case for London to government of whichever colour it is, and also to work with the boroughs. I don't see it as, you need to have stuff at a local level. Yes, absolutely, boroughs are important, but there are some strategic decisions that need to be made at that London-wide level. And actually, I'd like to see more stuff devolve from Parliament, because quite frankly...
Which of the three mayors so far has worked best with the London Assembly?
Well, that's really interesting. I would probably say Boris Johnson worked best, and I would say boroughs he worked best with, and I heard that from a number of Labour borough leaders when he was Mayor of London. But all mayors in the end love the power of it, and it all goes to their head, and they travel around the world and they enjoy that role and the status of it. But ultimately, banging the drum for London, but you need to work with everyone at all levels.
The Lord Mayor of London traditionally represents us around the world. Lord Mayor of the City of London, we had a figurehead, and that was a non-political figurehead. Now we have the most divisive person ever running London,
Boris is
who has
divisive
no
too,
support
goodness
in
me.
areas like mine.
I'll disagree
We're
with you on
completely
that,
disaffected by it. It costs us huge sums of money. It's a layer of bureaucracy. There's a whole industry around London government now, which, when it was abolished, when Mrs Thatcher correctly got rid of the GLC, we didn't miss it. We didn't need it. Mr Blair brought the whole thing back with all the costs involved.
Florence, who's your favourite mayor so
I
far?
disagree with you on that, Andrew, and I think it's a case of each mayor, the three mayors that we've had, they all have their own style, I think it's fair to say.
Why do we need one?
They all had their own style, I think it's fair to say. And I think what you see now with the current mayor is a mayor who's willing to work with our different leaders across London boroughs, willing to work with the cross-party group of MPs in terms of banging that beat for London, especially when, if we're honest, in the last Parliament, we saw a dumbing down. The levelling up agenda was going to level down London. We had to make sure we had a mayor beating the drum for London.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid we've run out of time. That's all we've got time for tonight. Thank you to my guests, Florence Eshalomi, Andrew Rosindell and Baroness Caroline Pidgeon. We're back next month. Until then, thank you for watching and good night.